It's new, it's blue, and surprisingly, it's not urethane. Hey team, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're tackling the hottest topic in bowling right now. It's the release of the Nu Blue Hammer from Hammer Bowling, obviously. And this is undoubtedly Hammer's answer to the new PBA hardness rule. And just a little background on that, we don't need to get into the weeds because if you're watching this video, you probably already know, and you've probably heard other players, maybe staff members discuss this. But in general, starting in early January, the PBA has a new rule in effect for 2024. Basically says that if you're using a traditional urethane bowling ball, as in a ball that absorbs oil according to their test procedure with a longer duration than 45 minutes, then that ball is deemed a urethane ball and it must subscribe to the new hardness rules that have been put into effect. The hardness now is raised for traditional urethane bowling balls from a 73 Sure D hardness up to 78, so a 5-point swing harder. Now, there are two ways to respond to this rule as a manufacturer. Way number one is to make a very hard urethane bowling ball. Would have to be above 78 according to the USBC hardness testing when it's approved for USBC. And again, subject to PBA testing if they suspect that that ball falls too far below that value. Now, the option, of course, to make a urethane ball means that it could go quite long. The range for plastic balls is effectively in the low 80s to mid 80s in terms of hardness, so we're playing in the range just below a plastic ball at this point. So the alternative is to, well, make not urethane. And that's exactly what we did here at Hammer. So I know everyone has a lot of burning questions. This is going to be an FAQ video that tries to tackle some of the most broad burning questions that people have about this ball. But I'm going to start where I always start, and we're first going to talk about the core. Now the core of this ball, of course, the Purple Hammer core, looks just like the Purple Hammer urethane core and has the same values as the core found in the Purple Hammer Reactive Solid. That's the solid purple one that has the reactive cover on it, as the name obviously suggests. Now the values between that inner core and the inner core that's in the actual purple urethane ball are a little different, and that has everything to do with the difference in densities of the cover stocks. So it's an inner-only core, meaning that there's no outer core, no compound material. So the weight of the ball has to come from just the cover plus the inner core. Because urethane is slightly heavier, that means that inner core on a urethane ball is slightly lighter. Because of that, it has a slightly higher RG and less differential overall with the same shape. So the Purple urethane ball in the mid 260s in total differential and, in RG with a total differential of 0.15 in 15 pounds. Here with the Nu Blue Hammer, we have a ball that has the same shape and volume inner core, just slightly more differential because it has a slightly heavier inner core to combat the fact that it has a cover stock that is more like reactive in the densities. So because of that, the values are incredibly close to that of the Purple Reactive. So we're looking at an 0.27 total differential with a slightly lower RG than the Purple Urethane at 2.586 in 15 pounds. And those values are a little different. They vary a little more weight to weight in this ball because it's an inner-only ball. It has a thick shell outer material, so the RGs and the differentials float just a little more from weight to weight as you move up and down. So everyone already knows the core in the Purple Hammer and the core in the Purple Reactive Solid. Tried and true performers, we don't need to say too much more about them, other than the fact that that thick shell offers you the most potential hitting power because you don't have that outer core lighter compound material surrounding the core. You have nothing but cover stock material until you get all the way to the inner core. And that's really helpful because traditional smooth urethane shapes and not urethane smooth shapes like this sometimes lack for a little bit of entry angle, especially as you open the angles up. So that added hitting power from the single inner core body with the thick shell is a nice added attribute. So now that we got that out of the way, we're going to go over to our FAQ. This is the section of the video that people are actually here to listen to. So let's take it away. First question. Isn't this just the Purple Hammer in a pearlized cover stock? No. It says it right on the ball. It is not urethane. This is not the Purple Urethane cover stock formula. It is its own new blend of material that gives us urethane-like reaction characteristics in terms of length and response to friction, but in a way that absorbs oil and meets the new PBA rule for oil absorption to be considered in the reactive class of bowling balls. Well, couldn't you have just taken the Purple Hammer cover and put plasticizer in it to make it reactive? No, it's never that simple. Well, think about it. The Purple Hammer cover is a pure urethane cover, no plasticizer in it. It's already around 73.5, 74 hardness as it stands. Plasticizer is a lubricant of sorts, and it softens the material when you add any amount into a cover-based system. So, you take a pure urethane system at 73.5 hardness, you put enough plasticizer in it to make it reactive, then immediately you've got a ball that's substantially softer. You could never put enough plasticizer in the urethane base to make it reactive while still maintaining 73.5 hardness. It's already at 73.5 hardness without plasticizer. So no, this is a brand new material base. It is related to the Purple Hammer, but it's certainly not the Purple Hammer urethane cover base. Isn't this just Hammer's version of microcell polymer? No. Every manufacturer has tried to duplicate the success and the reaction motion shape that the Purple Hammer has given hammer fans and Brunswick staffers, and there are literally pages of USBC approved ball list balls that have attempted to duplicate what the Purple Hammer can do, and none of them has been as successful as the Purple Hammer urethane. If you take that away and you ask all the manufacturers to make a bowling ball that mimics the Purple Hammer, my money would be on the chemists that actually know what the Purple Hammer formula is, have access to the raw materials that made the Purple Hammer, and have been manufacturing and selling the Purple Hammer since its inception. Of course, we have a couple of the people from Brunswick, and we have Randy Teitloff, who came over from EBI, and he was the mastermind behind the Purple Hammer. So if I'm a betting man, I'm putting all my chips in the manufacturer that made the Purple Hammer. If they have to duplicate a Purple Hammer reaction, but they have to make it reactive. Okay, but you guys already made the Purple Hammer reactive solid. We already talked about it in this video. So isn't this just like a pearl version of that in a different color? No, I've said it before and I'll say it again. This is actually a different base formula. It's not reactive, and you can tell because if you wipe some oil on a Purple Hammer reactive and you let it absorb in, it's only going to take mere minutes for that drop of oil or that smear of oil to be completely absorbed. If you take the Nu Blue Not Urethane cover and you smear the same amount of oil on it, it could sit there for quite a while, but it's going to absorb in a reasonable amount of time. You wipe some oil, for example, on a Purple Hammer urethane, you put that in your bag, you zip it up, and you go home for the night. You can come back the next day and open it up. That oil's still sitting there. Now, granted, it might have spread out a little bit, it might have diffused, but it won't absorb oil. So in terms of oil absorption properties, this is actually sitting between our reactive covers and our urethane covers. So this is just like a low friction reactive like the Axe cover. Again, no, it's a brand new base. The Axe cover, even if you sand it, yes, it is actually a reactive cover, and it will absorb oil, but it absorbs oil at a pretty slow rate. And the thing that the Axe has working against it in that regard is that it's a very hard system. So it absorbs oil at a rate that would actually classify it as a urethane ball according to the PBA. Because with their standardized lab test, it would probably take closer to an hour for the oil to absorb off of an Axe, maybe longer. I don't have the exact data in front of me, but it's certainly not that system. The Axe system is a lot harder because it's built for durability for spare shooting, and also even though it does absorb oil, the rate just wouldn't meet the reactive standards that the PBA has set. It would fall into the urethane-like reaction category based on oil absorption, even though it is more similarly related to our entry-level reactive balls than the not urethane, which is classified reactive by the PBA. It does get a little confusing. Okay, so this is a new not urethane, not reactive base that's built to mimic the Purple Hammer. So does this replace my Purple Hammer? Well, that's a loaded question. And there's two answers, right? If you're a PBA member, if you're on the PBA National Tour, this definitely replaces your Purple Hammer. You can't use the Purple Hammers as they're built right now at the 73 hardness limit, because the new limit starting in 2024 is going to be 78. Those balls are effectively outlawed. The Nu Blue Not Urethane is definitely going to be the replacement for them. If you bowl in any PBA event, PBA Senior Tour, PBA Youth, or PBA Junior, I believe is what it's called, or any PBA regional event, then you are not going to be allowed to use your Purple Hammer, so you're going to have to use the Nu Blue Not Urethane. And honestly, I think players are going to gravitate toward this anyway. I see this coming into play in a lot of tournament conditions, regardless of whether or not it is the PBA sponsored event or not. People are loving the ball. The feedback has been incredible. So, it's another motion option if you're in a USBC certified event, and it is your only motion option if you're in a PBA event. So does that mean that the Purple Hammer is illegal then? No. The Purple Hammer is still legal. To follow up with what I was just saying, no. Just in the PBA is it illegal. If you're in any USBC certified competition, or if you bowl in a league for fun, a league that's maybe not certified, your Purple Hammer is perfectly legal. The only time you can't use a Purple Hammer, and this gets into the weeds a little bit, but if your serial number starts with a 6 or a 7, then the USBC said that those balls are running into hardness issues and they have to be pulled out of play. Those are not legal. But if your serial number starts with an 8, a 9, a 0, or any letter in the alphabet, then those are perfectly legal. So there's only 2 years where the USBC had a question mark about the manufacturing hardness of Purple Hammers and said you can't use those. But any Purple Hammer with a purple pin and any Purple Hammer with a green pin that has a serial number that is not a 6 or a 7 can be used at any time in any USBC league or competition, whether it be a local league, a local tournament, or even like the US Open Championships in Las Vegas or Reno. All perfectly legal. So then, if I've got a Nu Blue, what do I do with my Purple Hammer? Well, use it. Like I just said, they're legal in USBC certified competition, and they're still great in tournament play, especially on shorter patterns or patterns that force you to play with more square angles, even if the length isn't particularly short. Obviously, our players have had great success with them and will continue to use them in non-PBA competition with great success, I'm sure. And the motion shapes are just a little subtly different. You obviously can't take a reactive type system and make it respond perfectly exactly like a urethane system. So there are nuanced differences between the Purple Hammer and the Nu Blue. There might be occasions in non-PBA tournaments where a Purple Hammer is going to be in play perfectly. And if you're not bowling in PBA events and you don't feel like you want to buy a Nu Blue, or you've got one or a number of Purple Hammers that treat you really well, maybe buying a Nu Blue isn't necessarily for you. But just know that it's a complementary option for the Purple Hammer. You can use them, you can use one, you can use them both, and you can use them as an arsenal if you want. There's a number of high rev two-handed no thumb players that have multiple purples drilled multiple ways, and I'm sure you can do the same with Nu Blue, and now you can mix and match. Okay, but now the question everyone's been asking for. Does the Nu Blue Hammer carry down and ruin patterns like the Purple Hammer does? Well, ruin is definitely a subjective term. It certainly changes the pattern by carrying down oil, but you have to remember the urethane Purple Hammer is a true urethane system that does not absorb oil. It also has a lower differential core at 0.015 for 15 pounds, which means it flares very, very little. It tracks over its own flares, and because of that, when it gets to the dry back end of the lane, it tends to lay down some of that oil that it is just picked up off the front of the pattern before it flares enough to find some dry part of the... So the carry down with Purple Hammer in particular is not good. It carries down a good amount. The Nu Blue Hammer has two things going for it. One, it absorbs oil, albeit at a fairly slow rate, but it does absorb some amount of oil in a short duration of time, the time it's going down the lane. And two, it has an 0.27 total differential, so 12 points different from the Purple Hammer. With that much differential, it flares just enough to get itself off of the previous flaring for most players. So you won't see it tracking over itself in terms of the oil rings, it should be tracking over a fresh part of the ball. Now, it doesn't absorb oil as fast as our high-performance reactive covers do, so I do believe you will see some level of carry down out of this ball, but it's not going to be nearly as severe as you see with the Purple Hammer. So in a lot of ways, this helps two things. It helps the carry down, so you won't have as much, you'll have a more consistent pattern, and you'll break down a pattern in a more reliable way, more like you're used to seeing with reactive. That's one positive. But then the other positive is that you have consistency shot to shot. If the ball's absorbing oil off the surface of the cover, then it's leaving you with fresh surface for the following shot. And of course, we always recommend you wipe your ball after every shot. That's good for the longevity, so it doesn't have to absorb all the oil, but it's also good for shot consistency. So this ball's not going to absorb oil at the rate that a reactive ball is going to absorb. So, you're probably going to want to, for consistency's sake, wipe the remaining oil off between shots. But any oil that gets left over, like when you wipe a Purple Hammer, that ball over time slimes up because wiping a ball is imperfect, right? You're leaving trace amounts of oil that over time is causing your hands to get oily, causing you to slip because it's just sitting on the surface of a urethane ball. With the Nu Blue, if you wipe the heavy density of oil off with a towel, it has enough oil absorption property that it's going to suck right off the surface of the cover, and you should have no problems with sliming up your hands, and you won't leave carry down. So you'll be happy being able to grip the ball. Your teammates will thank you for not destroying the league pattern, destroying in quotation marks. So yeah, this is a different animal altogether. Interesting. Yeah, I think this has been helpful. And I hope you guys have found this helpful too. I tried to answer all of the questions that have been floating around in the industry. I know a lot of them have been answered on a lot of various platforms between our pro staff and our R&D team. Hopefully this helps you be more informed about what the Nu Blue is and specifically what it isn't. And hopefully it helps inform your purchasing decision as well. I think a lot of people are going to have these Nu Blue on their hands. It could be a wave of blue when all the pros are using them on tour, and I think we'll see them on a lot of racks in local leagues and tournaments as well. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like and subscribe. As always, I try to make new videos as new cores are introduced in the brands of Brunswick, and of course I've already broken my promise by introducing you to a ball video about the Nu Blue Hammer, which has a core that we've already seen 100 times before. But that's okay, because this one is special, this one's important, and I hope you learned something new. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.